Namaste and welcome viewers to another brand new episode of Mirror Prime. I'm Ashish Pareek. The answer to sunlight is more sunlight, not to close doors and shut everything down. This is what the Supreme Court said today in the wake of the uproar over the Karnataka High Court judge's controversial remarks. The judge in question referred to a certain part of Bangalore as Pakistan. He also made some rather objectionable remarks while speaking to a female lawyer, and this has now prompted the top court to remind the custodians of law that their so-called casual remarks should also be made with a sense of responsibilities. With this controversy, there is now a debate on whether live streaming of courtroom proceedings should be allowed. Advocates Association of Bangalore has demanded that the live streaming be stopped, but this also raises a very serious question. Should we shut off the cameras in courts due to controversies, or this is now just another way of escaping accountability? Is banning live streaming really the solution, or should we embrace it as a tool for transparency in our judicial process? We'll be talking about this and a lot more. Joining us on the broadcast, Kapil Madan, Advocate Kapil Sankhla, Supreme Court lawyer, and also Advocate Parvez Memon, who is a senior partner at MZM Legal. Gentlemen, appreciate you for joining us on the broadcast. A very significant observation by the Supreme Court today. And ideally, we should have been talking about how the Supreme Court has today reminded the custodians of law that even their casual remarks should be made with a sense of responsibilities. But for some reason, the narrative has now shifted to whether live streaming should be allowed in the courts or not. Kapil Madan, I'll start with you. Not very long ago, some very well-meaning legal luminaries were of the opinion that live streaming is a very great way of transparency in the judicial system. And suddenly, when this happened and when they started facing the heat, suddenly they seem to have realized that, well, this is something that courts a lot of controversy and this should be banned. What do you think about this entire controversy?
Now, let me give you some perspective. You know, in our courts in India, we have a concept of open courts. That means any individual, whether he's a party in that case, whether he's not a party in that case, he can go in the trial court and he can sit in the court, watch the proceeding, whatever is happening, unless the court has directed in-camera proceedings, which usually happens in matters of sexual harassment or sexual violence cases. So, and having said that, once, you know, any person who is entitled to physically go and watch the proceedings, now, if you draw the same parallel, I think having online live streaming of the court proceedings is a step in the right direction. But the question is, are we really ready for it? Is our audience really mature enough to understand how our criminal jurisprudence, work? Now, we have a situation now wherein you will have, if the judges passes an order in favor of, any particular, politician, you will see the judge getting trolled all over on the social media because the video gets viral. I will not name, but there was one particular, politician whose family member also, recorded the court proceedings and circulated it on the social media. So it's a new, having live streaming is a new concept. I agree that it's a step in the right direction, but we are not ready. We do not have the system and wherewithal to control what flows from there. Like, I just give you an example where people are trolling the video clips of Supreme Court hearings are being used on social media. So you have all these kind of challenges which raises some sort of a question mark, despite the fact that it is a step in the right direction. But we as an audience, the journal audience, are we really prepared?
Okay. Now, of course, we can talk a lot about whether the audience, whether the viewers are prepared, or whether the lawyers and, of course, the people inside the four walls, are they prepared for something like this as well? Of course, that's a very extended debate. We'll get into the details of that. But before we do that, Kapil Sankhla, does live streaming of court proceedings, according to you, enhance transparency, or do you think this only increases the risk of unnecessary sensationalism and misinformation about what is said in the courtroom?
I completely agree with what Mr. Madan said in the first instance, and I will endorse what he said. You see, when you have a live streaming, it is an extension of an open court system. Anybody can go to the court and hear the matter. Exceptions, of course, are there. And that also raises another question. Should we close the doors to general public? Should we make it so exclusionist that a common man does not know what is happening, how judiciary and justice is getting dispensed? We, of course, don't want that. So, one of the hallmarks of a democratic country and a democratic nation is that every vertical is accountable. Every vertical of the government, of the nation, it could be legislature, judiciary, executive, is accountable to each other and most importantly to the general public. And you cannot create a my lord system. And I'm saying this with a lot of respect to my lords. You see, what happens is that Justice Chandrachud, the Honorable Supreme Court, has stated that we should do away with this concept of my lord. We should call judges as sir, which makes sense. But it is very difficult for us to, remove that yoke of what the Britishers gave us. But the other aspect is that, like RTI, which is one of the strongest examples of what an open nation, what an open country, what an open democracy is about, is also open judiciary. That every person can hear what is happening, how justice is being dispensed, what law is, how lawyers are, and also have the right to comment on it. And I think this is very important. I think we should now be mature. Like we say that, you cannot have defamation for everything. It is the same thing. That you cannot shut down systems saying that, because judges are getting trolled or lawyers are getting trolled or people in authority are getting trolled. Why not? Maturity flows both ways. It is important for the people to be matured, but it is also important for the people in power to be matured enough to understand that there could be certain people with faculties which are more childlike. Call them naughty. Call them people who do not understand authority. Or people who are doing it because they have nothing better to do. Judiciary does not fall down because certain person has trolled a particular judge or a judicial act. This is one part. Second part, we have a habit of making either demons or gods out of people. But judges are also human beings. They also read the paper. They also hear what you are saying. They also understand that there is something called public opinion, though they are supposed to be beyond that. But the fact is they're human beings. And as human beings, they could say something in the flow of an argument, a debate, or a discussion. I think we should be matured enough to understand that they're human beings. Merely because we call them my lords, they do not become demigods. They're just wiser than us. But even wise men falter. And lastly, very, very importantly, does this not humanize the judicial system, which is otherwise so complicated? Does this not tell a person that it's all right? There could be humor in court as well. Or there could be something that could be perhaps in bad taste. But I think judiciary is mature enough to understand this, and so are we as citizens of India. To give away our democratic rights, or a right in RTI, for example, or give up an open judicial system, I think would be a very regressive step as far as nation is concerned. And we would be giving away a substantial part of our liberty should we choose to do that.
Correct. Also, Advocate Pervez Memon, there's also a set of opinion here that the concern really about live streaming is not just about preventing misinformation. It is also an effort to avoid public criticism. Do you agree with that?
Well, Ashish, I may not agree to that because, as rightly said by my co-panelists, that judiciary is not so meager to be carried away or swayed by what public perception is. As has been said by Honorable Chief Justice today in the court, that the answer to sunlight is more sunlight and not to suppress what happens in the court. It should not be an endeavor of the judiciary to put a veil on what happens in the court, because transparency is what justice demands. It is for the purposes of transparency, not only for the judges to their performance, but it was also made for convenience of the people to join the court hearings through VCs. We have been seeing that after the live streamings have been started, even the councils appeared through VC, the courts appear through VC, the other side appears through VC, even the litigants can appear through VC. It is all transparent in the interest of a transparency as to what the advocates are arguing in favor of a particular petitioner or a defendant, what the court is recording, what was argued or what was not argued. So if you look at international standards or international practices, this practice of open court or live streaming of court proceedings has been going on in prospective countries like US or UK from decades altogether. We have adopted it now, and it is a progressive step. So as rightly said by my co-panelists, that we should not take a regressive step of stopping this because some judges have faltered in their conduct. As in currently in the case of the Justice of the Honorable Karnataka High Court, they are bound to falter. I agree that judges can also err. It is a human quality to err. But we should also be conscious of the fact that you are holding a position. Just to say. Sorry, I was getting a call.
Okay, no issues, Parvez Maman. I'll go to Kapil Madan here. Kapil Madan, of course, I understand the opinion that's coming in here is the fact that, of course, a lot of the videos that come in from the courts as well are misused, and that's one of the concerns of the judiciary as well. In that case, do you also agree the fact that if the concern really is about the misuse of videos, the sensationalization of certain things that are said in the courtroom, taking them out of context, then instead of banning live streaming, do you think there should be a set of guidelines about the use of these videos, about how they're used, about how there should be no sensationalism, but also at the same time no misuse of such videos as well? So instead of banning, do you think there should be an alternative solution, a regulation of some sort of such videos?
Let me also tell, for the benefit of viewers, our Delhi High Court has already promulgated relevant rules insofar as these videos are concerned. Because let me tell your viewers that if someone visits the court and if he records the court proceedings illegally, that is a contempt of court. Similarly, in fact, those regulations also say the same thing. If you illegally, without any authority, if you record the proceedings and if you use it for for any purposes which scandalizes the court or put the courts in bad light, technically it may amount to a contempt. But with the widespread social media and its network, I see there are considerable amount of challenges insofar as our courts are also concerned to track whatever is happening, because our courts does not have any investigating units of their own, because that's the domain of police authorities, and police authorities are not empowered to investigate the issues of contempt. So it's a evolving space, I would say. And again, I would reiterate by saying that if you ask me honestly, I think live streaming and video online appearances have far more advantages than the disadvantages. But yes, it has its peculiar kind of challenges, and we should be working closely to address those challenges so that we have a robust system, we have open and a free transparent judicial system, so that any public spirited person gets to know what exactly is happening, and it is also regulated in a manner that the proceedings, the live stream proceedings, are not misused.
Right. Also, Kapil, I was earlier speaking to a couple of senior colleagues of yours from the Supreme Court as well, and they were of the opinion that live streaming should be considered as part of the right to information and also open access to justice under Articles 19 and 21 of the Constitution. Do you think this also means that instead of limiting what the public can access, how this information is spread further, the focus should be on that?
Yes, I agree with you. In fact, if you recall the can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
I can't hear you. Production team, I can't hear the anchor now. Am I audible?
Kapil, you're audible. Go ahead.
Yes. So, let me just tell your viewers very briefly. The Honorable Court, when they passed the judgment in the electoral bond case, one of the issue was whether the people have right to information or not. And in fact, on that premise, that electoral bond scheme was struck down because the Honorable Supreme Court said that the voters have right to know that which political party is getting funds from which entity, and as such the fact that you have concealed this information, that affects their right to information, which is now considered as a facet of fundamental right also. And if you draw the same parallel towards the court proceedings, then in that situation every individual will be legally entitled to know that what is happening in the courts of law. And if you compare it with our system, the way in which our court functions, because as I said earlier, we have an open court system. It's not that the court proceedings happens in a secretive manner. It is always an open court. Anyone can go walk into any court and see whatever is happening. So if you draw the same parallel, I think there is no legal impediment that you should be stopping the live streaming. Rather, the law which is now evolving suggests that the right of information can be stretched to an extent where a person can claim that I have a legal right to know whatever is happening in any courts of law, and therefore you should not stop this live streaming, because now the courts have the infrastructure.
Okay.
After having the infrastructure,
I'll quickly take this point across to Kapil Sankhla, who joins us back. Mr. Sankhla, again, a lot of question about the right of the people out there watching as well, and also a lot of questions about the judicial accountability as well. Do you think there's also a concern, the fact that with a lot of these videos going viral of what's happening inside the courtroom, what is being said as well, there's a lot of public criticism, public opinion also that comes into the picture. And as you yourself rightly mentioned, even justices are human beings and they are affected by all this. Do you think there's also a concern that such public opinion, such criticism could also affect the way they see things, the way they react, the way they speak inside the courtroom, eventually also bearing an effect on the verdict that comes out as well?
Criticism is good. Criticism is good because it questions not only your authority, but the process and procedure. And criticism is always welcome, because the moment you stop criticism, you have stopped evolving. And judiciary has constantly been evolving. You see, when now today, a lawyer can sit somewhere thousands of kilometers away, join a proceeding, argue his matter. His client, who perhaps could not enter the hallowed halls of the court, can also enter the court virtually and hear what's happening. And I think that is brilliant, because now what's happening is that you have a judiciary that is opening up and it is involving you. At the end of the day, a victim itself could not go to the court and not know what's happening. Today you can. The courts are out there open on your channel to be discussed. You humanizing judiciary, judges, lawyers, litigation, and the legal process. And that is very important, because now a common man, after hearing a probably proceeding for 3 days, 10 days, believes that he might have a right, that he can go to the court, that he need not be scared or worried. Or he could go himself and say that, listen, this is what has happened, and this is the habeas corpus. I need certain kind of protection, or my child has been, falsely implicated in a case, or whatever the case may be. And I think it is imperative that we keep evolving judicial process. And I think it is nobody's case ever that merely because a judge or a lawyer is on a channel or TV would, so to say, seek more footage. Nobody really has that time. Everybody wants to do their matters, go do the other matters. The judges are also hard pressed for time. So nobody is actually playing to the gallery or playing to the camera. Nobody frankly has that time. And if they do, then there is always the criticism, and you can watch and comment and make sure that this doesn't happen the second time. Why would you want to close doors? Merely there is something that could evolve or improve, saying that we do not want an improvement, we do not want an evolution, we do not want to perfect our craft. And as my co-panelist said, that internationally this is the norm. I can also tell you that I've done international arbitration for more than $390, $450 million. And this was something very interesting in Singapore and London, that there was a transcription service, which is an outside system.
Also, Mr. Sankhla, we're running short of time here, but I do get what you're trying to say here. And I think even Kapil Madan, who was earlier speaking, is also of the similar opinion. While it is very important to ensure there's a transparency as far as the judiciary is concerned, and also the right to access information as far as the people are concerned, it's also very important to ensure that there is no misuse of live streamed court videos, and also there is no illegal spread of information that is sensationalized and also curated to spread misinformation. Appreciate you, gentlemen, for joining us on the broadcast with this very interesting debate about live streaming of courtroom proceedings as well. Viewers, on that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Mirror Prime. Lots more lined up on the other side. Stay tuned.